Oh my God, Virginia, I was just about to ask, where's Kevin?
Mary Claire hasn't hiding.
He's here. It's just not the one you're used to seeing.
I know.
He sent his number one stand-in.
Yes.
Yes, he did. Okay. We have Bob Shields on the phone. We have Mayor Johnson on the phone. And I guess we don't have Harry on yet.
Yeah, I am on now. Where'd I go?
Oh,
Harry's here.
sorry, Harry.
Hi,
I
Harry.
disappeared.
I
I
missed
got a
Harry.
message of some kind. Hi,
Okay, Josh
you
Mitchell,
doing?
I see,
how are you?
Hey, Josh.
already signed
Hi.
in.
How you doing, Josh?
Everybody.
Yes.
Oh, there's Josh. Great, thank you. Okay, well, we might as well get the meeting started, Virginia. I don't have our agenda in front of me. I thought
I'll run it
would've-
down. The first item is the special event application for the Ice Festival. Obviously, there's really not much to discuss where it's this weekend.
Right,
But this was the first one, and we agreed that when we got them, I was present them to council.
correct.
I would like to move that forward to vote on it at our February meeting officially and approve it. So
Okay,
that it
even though the
passes.
event will be over.
That's okay.
Okay,
just
just
so that we
for the
do it the-
record.
For the record, correct.
What
Okay.
did we decide about did we decide that we need to take formal action to approve these things, or are they just being presented to us as a report?
We decided that they were going to be presented to you guys so that you'd have the opportunity to get involved in the process if you wanted to.
Does it
Well, I think-
require a vote though, Virginia?
I don't think that we require a vote. I don't think that was the final decision.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking, because if
Right.
that's not my recollection either. I think it was just to be presented to us as a report.
Right.
I mean, 'cause
Right.
if we needed to take action on it, then we need to require these far enough in advance that we are able to do so before the event.
Yeah.
If
Right.
even still, we should. I mean, I suppose here we are. It's before the event, but not very far. There's not really.
We
much
can't vote for
opportunity.
this one. We did
Right.
say that we should have them a month in advance. This one happened to come in like the day after our meeting, our January meeting. So it was like January 4th we got it. Unfortunately, normally they do the Ice Festival in February, and this
Right.
time they switched it to January. So we don't have an option on this as far as timing. I don't think we want to cancel the Ice Festival.
No,
No.
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 kind of late to
Yeah.
do that now.
Yeah,
Right. And it is something that
So-
happens yearly, so
right.
we
Right,
kind of are cognizant of what to expect.
Right. And as Josh says, as I recall, it was that we were going to present it as a report. It was supposed to come a month in advance. It would give you the opportunity to provide input and express any concerns.
Because I
Unfortunately-
believe they have to be approved by both yourself and the chief, right? So if you saw any reason to be concerned, you would have perhaps either denied that or brought it to us for approval. So by the time it gets to us as a report, you've already reviewed and approved it as the chief.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I also believe, Josh,
That's
along that same line, that Virginia would have sent out an email to us, giving us enough heads up that if anybody had any questions secondary, we could come back to either herself or the chief, or
Right,
come
and
back
I
to the group.
did forward this to you the day we got it so that everyone had
Right.
an opportunity to look it over.
Right.
So yeah, there was
Exactly.
time. This would just be the last public opportunity to discuss it. Okay.
Okay,
So our next
And the
item on
next-
the agenda is Mary Claire has a memo to council regarding COVID pay for part-time employees. And this this question came up at the request of the chief. And Mary Claire looked into it, and I'll let you take it over, Mary Claire.
Sure. The question came up and it was surprising to me, but fortunate that this is the first time it has come up, because apparently no one in the department has been, fortunately, they're impacted by COVID in terms of getting sick. So we had our first situation where one of our part-time officers tested positive. After that, missed 2 shifts, is seeking compensation for those. So the question is, he's part-time, he's not entitled to sick time. So is there anything legally that would require us to pay him due to COVID? At this point, there's not. There was at a certain period of time, but anything that would require that has now expired. So he had submitted some documents. The first related to COVID-19, enforcement officer disability. That only relates to when we're in a state of emergency, which we're not. He had also submitted compensation pursuant to heart and lung. Again, I don't believe that would apply because again, he's not a full-time officer. So I think we're in a situation where it's really going to be up to council in terms of how we want to proceed when we have an individual that doesn't have sick time, but is out due to COVID. I do know that other departments have paid officers that are missing shifts due to a positive COVID test that's been confirmed. So I think it's up to us. And obviously we want to encourage employees that are sick to stay home. We don't want to discourage people that think they may be sick from testing if they're concerned about missing a shift, but there is nothing legally that requires the borough to pay. So this particular officer missed 2 shifts, as I indicated in the memo. So it would be 16 hours of time for this particular officer.
And just as an FYI, we do have a treasurer that missed 3 days of work because of COVID. And we do have a part-time DPW worker that missed 3 days of work because of COVID. So if we do the one, we're good, you can expect to be asked for the others. So I'm just putting that out there. Now, obviously, we can't vote on this until next week, but did anybody have any questions for Mary Claire on it?
Yeah, this is Bob Shields. Is Chief Yarns, is he on the call or
He's
No,
not.
he'll be on next week.
do you have a position on it? I mean, I know part-time or hiring police officers is kind of a tough thing to do. I mean, does he have an opinion if this is going to help us keep people or, I mean, does he have any sort of feeling one way or the other on it or?
The thing that he expressed to me is just that he knows that South Abington pays and therefore, and he knows, yeah, so he feels like it would be a nice thing to do, but he doesn't feel strongly. So we can talk to him about it next week.
Sure.
I don't like the idea of having people coming on shifts if there's potential that they may have COVID. I'd rather have them stay home and get paid than come on and get other people sick. But that's just my opinion. But I'd like to hear what Chief Yarns has to say about it. So
I share the sentiment with Bob Shields, is that my only concern is that it kind of decreases morale in the sense of people being afraid to get tested if they're symptomatic because they are cognizant of the fact that we will not pay them sick time. And I just wouldn't want that to happen where people are feeling symptomatic but are discouraged to get tested because God forbid it's positive, they're aware we're not paying. And only because other departments have been paying, I would like us to kind of follow suit because it is difficult as is to find officers. And I think any positive incentives that we can create to do so are always welcomed. I understand we're not legally obligated, but morally, this was our first case. We've been very lucky and hopefully we will continue to be very lucky where if we do implement this policy, it won't be one that's constantly utilized anyway, in my opinion. I mean, we've been in COVID for 2 years and this was our first case. I think that's incredible. And if we continue that path, I don't think it's something that appears to hopefully not be a big issue where we'd be spending a numerous amount of money to do so. And it was 2 days, correct, Mary Claire?
Correct. It was 2 shifts.
Okay.
So
I have one more question, Mary Claire.
Sure.
Was this officer infected from our police department or was it outside the police department?
No, he's not even suggesting that he got it through work here.
Okay. And any of our other employees, they were never infected on with their position?
No.
Okay. So could that be one of our kind of a rule of thumb? I mean, if you got the COVID while you were on
How do you
duty,
prove it?
How
That
would
would
we
be
prove
hard to
that,
prove.
though?
Yeah, Yeah,
And that was my other concern is we can't definitively argue he got it while actively working, and we can't definitively argue he got it while not actively working.
Right.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, I think we're opening up a can of worms to the whole situation, because I'm not so much concerned about our situation, but councils in the future, because now we're going to be starting a precedent that if something happens, people with no benefits will have the opportunity to turn around and come back to council and say, well, you did it in 2022 for this, that, or the other thing. And then we're going to end up having precedent that the unions or the employees will be able to come back on. I think they're part-time employees. They're not really guaranteed the time to begin with. I'd hate to see us throwing our taxpayers' money away frivolously. Not that I think the reason that the gentleman didn't come in was a legitimate enough reason, but I just think that it needs to be given a little bit of thought. Maybe let the personnel committee handle it. Come back to us.
I would think.
Come
the
back to us
personnel
with a
committee-
recommendation. I just don't want to see money thrown away. If it's going to start a precedent, then I think we're going to bite our nose off to spite our face.
If I have a couple thoughts / questions, kind of in keeping with what Dave just said. I mean, I think as a matter of principle, we want to discourage people that have COVID to stay home. Otherwise, it becomes a spreading situation. Not that I don't think where somebody got it, even having that discussion should impact at all what our policy is. Because I actually have COVID right now, as do two of my kids. I have no idea who got it first. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
The bottom line is, I also worry about the slippery slope here. If we say this person doesn't have sick time, but we're going to pay them, well, then what happens to the person that does have sick time and is out? Are they going to say, I want you to pay that and not have to use my sick time? That's not really fair.
Exactly.
Do we get into, what is the threshold that we like to supply? Is it that you have a positive test and you've submitted the result to show that you're positive? Is it that you're presumptive positive? Are we going to pay you because you stay home because you've been exposed out of an abundance of caution? All of those are very relevant, but I just don't know what the right lines are to draw around it. And so whether the personnel committee takes that up, or whether Mayor Claire perhaps looks into what some others have done and what kind of safeguards they put around their policy, some combination of those things, I think it needs to be very tight if we're going to do it. But I do think as a matter of principle, we should be encouraging people that are sick to not come in and spread further.
Stay home. Yeah.
So I guess to go off what Josh said is, can we possibly create parameters for it, Mary Claire, if we were to say that we would pay for part-time officers who contract COVID?
I think there's a number of things you can do. I mean, first and foremost, could specifically limit the situation to COVID and not other illnesses would be
Right.
first.
Can we cap the days?
And well, that's something too. So I did speak to a colleague that specializes in employment law, and as well as looking into it myself. That was my question. So could council say, for example, we will pay anyone that doesn't have sick up to 2 shifts or 4 shifts or whatever it is that you think is reasonable? I think you can kind of create those parameters for yourself. So that way it's not just sort of an abyss that someone is not necessarily going to get paid for whatever their quarantine time is or whatever, but there's some incentive for them to err on the side of testing, having the results, and know that they're not going to be totally unpaid for whatever time they were going to be working. So I do think it's something that you can legally tailor. And in terms of a question that, and this is something Virginia and I had spoken about, but which Josh brought up is, so this officer, and I mean, I understand that the department is very amicable in general, and it may not be an issue, but you could also have a situation where someone says, wait a second, I put in my sick days. Along those same lines, I think you could also designate that. And that's sort of a policy. Do we want to set that or not? But do you want to give people whatever it may be, let's say 2 kind of freebie days that you can
Right.
use. If you present a positive test after those days, then you use your sick time. And I think that's for council to determine what is reasonable.
Right, like I guess a scenario would be then that we would need to have is first setting the amount of days that we would be willing to pay. And then maybe to make it fair, the same amount of days we're willing to pay to a part-time officer, saying that a full-time officer would maybe have those same amount of days as free, like 2 free, we pay you, and then after that, you have to utilize your sick time? Is that
Exactly.
something?
Well,
Okay.
These are
part-timers
all
don't,
gonna-
part-timers do not get sick leave. I think this goes back to the heart and lung, which regular officers do. But I'm in agreement, as the mayor, I'm in agreement with Dave and Josh to a degree. If we start this, do we have to put it in every contract? Talk to the union about that? I think the language on this came out, but it wasn't explained good enough to give us an idea what direction we should go. But I think we need to think about it and then come up with a plan. Because now you're talking about the union, you're talking about part-timers that don't get sick leave, but our regular officers do. And it could be a costly thing down the road. No one knows. And like Josh says, no, you don't want an officer coming out if he does have it, but you don't want it to spread any further. So I think it needs to be thought out real good. We could throw ideas out there, but we have to throw the right ideas out there to protect our citizens and to protect our employees and to help our part-time officers out. But I think we need to come up with some type of a committee and get the right answers and come back and then vote on it. But I think Josh hit it on the head, and I think Dave Jenkins hit it on the head too. We need to do something.
Mayor, this is Jerry, Mayor. Do you feel that the personnel committee could really sit down and kind of really work and tweak this so that we would have something firm and solid to go with?
Well, Madam President, I honestly believe, and I'm no lawyer, believe me, but I honestly believe we should have someone from council and we should have our labor lawyer check into this, because like I said, when this came out, it wasn't explained clearly. But the way I'm interpreting this memo is that, one, part-time officers do not get sick leave. Two, it actually comes under the Heart and Lung Act for police officers through the state.
Right.
So, I mean, the labor lawyer and someone on council should definitely look into it, because, like I said, it could be a costly thing. Right now, it isn't. 16 hours isn't much, but it could go up higher. And do you have that kind of money in your budget to pay for it? I think we need to sit down and really look at it and think about it real good.
Going along these same lines, you've got 3 individuals with time accrued where they haven't been at work. You're also talking about the union. You're going to have to, number one, you're going to have to talk to the DPW about the union, and you're going to have to talk to the regular police about the union, because it's going to include possibly opening up the contract again so that they have the ability to get this straightened out. I think this is where I said about the can of worms. You're opening up a can of worms here.
Yeah,
We don't have to really make our mind up February or March. We can always, if we decide to pay these people, we can always retroactive or pay them as a retroactive from the time it happened.
Mhm.
But I think, as Josh, the mayor, we've all kind of come to the agreement here that this is something that is going to reflect not so much right now, because it's going to take a minor amount. We're only talking a few $100s probably at the most right now. However, at some point in time in the future, our future councils are going to get saddled with something that we've decided on now. And I personally think it's a mistake to do it.
I just want to make note on something too. I actually know people that have contracted COVID and have been sick for weeks and weeks. So that's something else to think about. Like someone could be off for weeks, sick with it. So it's just another point to think about.
Yeah.
I think that's where their shorter long-term disability would likely come into play.
Right.
They're so insured.
If I could interject just a couple thoughts. First of all, I think it's wonderful that council wants to do this, but from like managing the budget perspective, it's just the long-term implications scare me a little bit. The generosity is great, but we're dealing with unions. And once you give, it's very hard to take back. So I did want to mention that. And I hate that I'm saying that out loud and I'm public, but it is a concern. The other thing, though, is that if we do decide to go forward with it, I really think it's important that we approach the two unions and get a memorandum of understanding signed where they agree that this is a one-time offer and that they're not going to accept look for precedent on it.
Mary Claire, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Harry.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Mary Claire, since the advent of COVID, has there been any kind of a statewide issue on this case? I do agree. Somebody had mentioned about limiting the amount of time that will be open for. I think that's a good idea. But has like the FOP or anything like that come up with suggestions, like with a management discussion and stuff? The Fraternal Order of Police?
Not that I'm aware of. So when COVID first started, there was the Families First Coronavirus Response Act is what came out. And that shifted what was required of employers in terms of providing time and the amount of time. That act expired. It was now going on over a year. So it was December 31st, 2020. So since then, nothing else has been put into place. That's a good question. Is there anything advisory? There isn't anything that I have found yet, and I'm not sure. I could reach out to the other departments to see if there's something in particular that they're citing to. I know Chief Garrity and Chief Trentley, and I could certainly reach out to both of them if that's where it's coming from, or if it was just a department decision. But I'd be happy to look into that.
Yeah, I would think that statewide, this issue probably has come up. I would think.
I would think so too.
And that's why I mentioned, like, has the FOP, their union and such, along with management, had a discussion and an agreement of a situation like this?
Yeah, as I said, not to my knowledge now, but let me explore that question and I'll get back to council on that. And as I said, if there's something in particular that they're relying on, then I'll make sure that we're aware of it.
Thank you.
I think that this would be a good time to maybe table this whole issue until we get a little bit more information on it.
Well, I do think that at this point, personnel should get involved in it, Dave, and
Absolutely.
start looking at every direction to go with it. Absolutely. And if
I'm
would
definitely
you
in favor
agree
of
with
that.
Virginia, that we could probably sit down with our personnel committee and
Sure.
start picking away at it.
So the
Okay.
personnel, I believe, is Bob Shields, Harry, and you. So do the three of you want to set up a meeting sooner rather than later? And did you want Mary Claire to participate in that meeting?
I think it'd be
Okay,
wise.
yeah. What I would like to do is we can meet at the borough, and Mary Claire, if she wanted to do it virtually, we could arrange that too, so that.
Okay,
If
sure.
that
I'm
would
happy
work
to
for
come
her.
up if I'm available. We could see what dates we could coordinate.
Okay, we basically will go on your schedule, Mary Claire, as far as time goes. And of course,
And Bob
Shields,
Shields.
we
I'd
want to
say-
make sure that, he would be open.
So Mary,
Okay.
maybe you and Bob Shields could work together on an appointment. And then Harry, are you a little bit flexible?
Yeah, whatever you guys want me to do.
Okay. Good.
Anytime next week would be okay. Well, we have our council meeting Wednesday night, but
I think Dave's right. I think we need a little more time to look at
Oh,
various
sure.
angles here.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
Definitely.
because once you commit to it, you're committed. That's it.
yeah.
That's
There's
correct.
no turning back.
Okay.
Okay, well,
That's-
that's the direction we'll move with it, Virginia.
Well,
Okay.
I think actually we could table it until we have the ideas from the solicitor as well as the personnel committee on which way to go. So maybe discuss it at our next work session rather than take time up out of the regular council meeting.
Well, yeah, but in the meantime, if personnel can be compiling all this information, Dave,
Oh, absolutely.
we're
Yep.
gonna,
If you're ready next week, we'll put it on the agenda. If you're not, we'll hold off to the work session.
There
okay.
you go. There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, that, and probably the work session would be our best. It gives us more time with it too.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking too, perhaps
The rest of
Mayor
council
Johnson
will
and the
agree
chief,
with that.
should they be a part of this meeting?
Well, that we will discuss at the personnel meeting, Harry, too, sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
okay,
all right.
very good. Is that in agreement with all the other council members for
Yes, I agree.
personnel to start the
Yes.
ball rolling next week? Okay. Okay,
All right.
very good. Thank you,
All right, then.
Virginia.
No problem. Next item on our agenda was we're going to discuss at the work session each month what we're going to do for the next month, whether we're going to go live or virtual. Now, we do have the hybrid, so if we go live, it would be hybrid. We would have the Zoom in capability, but our decision is for next week. And for next week, are we going live or virtual?
I think we ought to, personally, I think we ought to stay virtual. There's just too much COVID still going around.
I think so too.
I agree with
agree.
virtual.
I agree.
No. Okay.
Okay, so we're virtual next week and the work session in February, which we'll talk about that in March. Okay.
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 Okay. That was
Sounds good.
easy. Okay, Shade Tree Commission asked me to give an update to council. I'm just going to take a couple real quick minutes. They wanted you to know that they have not been meeting in person, but they have been working this past year, but because of COVID, they haven't been meeting in person. They spent their budget on the purchase of 69 years in 2021 and got them all, 69 trees and planted them all. They also planted some trees on Claremont and Ashford. They did get residents' permissions before they were planted. And let's see, Arbor Day, they are now 16 years Tree City because they've met all the qualifications for Arbor Day.
Great.
So, yep, they're still going. And she said that she's very grateful for the board and DPW and staff's support and for placing the spring order from Schick-Tills in February. So just letting you know, they're still working, they're still accomplishing a
Great.
lot. And they hope to get back to live meetings as soon as COVID gets a little bit more controlled.
They are a very, very effective team. I really have to compliment them on a job well done.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is from Mary Claire, and it was the memorandum that she sent regarding the liquor license transfer for Summit City Market.
So this was something, as I indicated, I heard from the attorney that represents City Market Cafe. So this was sought, actually going back quite a while. July 1st, 2020 is when council had first approved this transfer. There was some delays in closings and whatever else due to some issues with the taxes on the defunct restaurant before they attempted the transfer. And in the meantime, a new LLC was created. What they're asking is to be able to put the liquor license in the name of the new LLC. It's the same owners and it's going to the same entity. So I attached the documents to indicate that. So if council was inclined to go forward with that, then we would do an amended resolution, which would indicate the transfer to that LLC. In
There would
terms
be
of
no
notice,
changes in the license.
no changes in the license. So in terms of the procedure that was taken the first time, there's nothing in terms of the license itself. It's just the LLC, again, which are these individuals that are named in my memorandum.
Are we
I'd like
okay
to-
to vote on this? Go ahead.
I'd like to move this forward since it's basically the same thing that we approved in 2020. I don't think there's any major objections to it on the advice of the solicitor. It's just a matter of procedure that we do it. I think it's a good idea.
My only
that'll be
question,
on the-
this is Bob Shields here. So how come they're changing the name of the LLC? It's the same people and it's the same company. Why are they creating a new one?
Well, they already created it. And they did that a while back. I think that the only difference was to limit it to only Roy and Christie as the owners. That was my understanding, who were owners on the original LLC as well. But in terms of I didn't get into any of the details beyond that in my discussions with Kevin, but I just know.
But you're taking this on Kevin Smith's word that there's no new people involved with this. This is the same business, same everything. They're just changing the name.
No, he sent me the operating agreements, which show that it is Roy, that this one is limited to Roy and Christie, who were original owners.
Okay.
And I do, if you didn't receive that, Bob, I attached those to my memorandum, but I'm more than happy to send that out again. And if you have any additional questions or anything you would like me to explore in the interim, I'm happy to do that as well.
No, I just, as I said, it doesn't. I was just concerned why they would want to just have another entity. You know, it just seems strange if they were approved under one LLC and it's the same members and they have the same business and all that, the same organizational function. Why would they want to have a new LLC? That's my only question. But if you're saying it's all the same people, then I guess that's just the way it is. So.
It is. I do have the agreement to indicate that. But again, if you want me to forward that to you, I'm happy to do that. I could do that now, actually. Do you want me to email that to you, Bob?
Oh, no, that's okay. I'll take it. I'm good with it.
Okay.
Bob, it was actually part of the packet. Mary Claire's memorandum was 37 pages, and that was all printed and in the packet that we scanned and emailed to you. So you should have all of that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I just was to question why. I mean, why are they changed? Why are they giving a new LLC? That's just my question. But for whatever reason, if it's what they want to do, that's fine. Maybe it's I don't know, for finance reasons or whatever. So, but if it's all the same people and it's the same people who came and applied in front of council 2 years ago, then that's fine with me.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I think that sounds fine.
Okay, the next item on our agenda was just a quick study of the MS4. I was asked to just prepare something real quick for council to make sure that everybody was up to speed or at least had a basic understanding of what MS4 is, since we are anticipating a meeting being scheduled. They did agree that it was going to be virtual invitations when they're ready to schedule it. So anyway, when we're talking MS4, MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. It is the water that is picked up off the streets and yards and so forth, and it runs through our swales and through our storm drains, and then it is discharged untreated into waterways. So it is not sewage. It is the water that you see in the storm drains that goes into creeks. So the federal government is requiring regulation, or has always required regulation of that, because it is being dumped untreated and the waterways are getting contaminated. So they require everyone, municipalities that meet certain criteria to get permits, and we are a general permit holder. we were obligated to do that. And the permit will tell us, it describes the stormwater control practices that need to be implemented to meet the permit requirements. So the permit tells us we have to achieve certain standards, we have to report them and so forth. The permits are 5 years, and our last permit was from 2018. So it's going to be renewing for next year. Excuse me. When it renews next year, they will have stiffer requirements. Each time it's renewed, and it's been renewed a number of times, it gets tougher. Okay. Let me see what I want to tell you. The permit requires a couple different things. There's 6 points that have to be met in the permit. One is public education and outreach. Second is public involvement and participation. The third is illicit discharge detection and elimination. The fourth is construction site runoff control. The fifth is post-construction stormwater management, new developments and redevelopments. And the last one is pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations and maintenance. We have to every year in our reports go through all 6 of those and tell them what steps we are taking to achieve each of those. And as I said, that's the current permit. I don't know what's going to be asked for in the next permit, but we do know that that next permit is going to be coming up next year. And we do anticipate that it is going to be a stronger, a more demanding permit. Just some things that we do to help meet those standards. Some of the things that we do, the Shade Tree Commission, those 69 trees that the Shade Tree Commission planted, that counts. That gives us a lot of credit on our reporting. We have a grant for a creek restoration project that the engineers are getting ready to bid out this spring. It's a $500,000 grant. We got a grant for stormwater replacement line. That was the work that we did on West Grove Street. That was over $200,000. We have to annually inspect all of our BMPs, our best management practices. We have to go out and check all of the commercial collection spots. For example, caregivers. When they built their site, they put a stormwater detention system in under, mandates. They had to have less stormwater coming off the property after they built than they did before they started. We need to annually go out and inspect that, make sure that they're maintaining it and that it's operating properly. We have to have our engineers involved in all the plans that come through the land development. And something else that we did is our lot coverage ordinance, which went back a couple of years ago, but that went a long way to helping as well. So these are all things that you can do. But as you see, the 2 of the big projects there, $500,000 and $200,000. We don't have that kind of money to throw around every year. So just wanted to make you aware that when we're talking MS4, we're talking strictly stormwater. We're talking about the fact that we're collecting all this water off of the roads and ultimately dumping it into the creeks that lead to the rivers and the oceans, and that the state is mandating it. The permit is due to expire. We'll be renewing next year with additional requirements in it. And it's very costly. So those are the key points I wanted to make about the MS4. So when we're deciding whether or not to regionalize, you know that you're actually discussing, you're thinking apples to apples. Did anybody have any questions they wanted to throw out about that I can answer for you?
Yes, Virginia. I'm sorry.
Go ahead first, Bob.
This is Bob Shields. I know we spoke a little bit, and I appreciate you giving a rundown about this. With the regional stormwater, like the authority they're talking about doing the management program, and I think we discussed, we're sort of a smaller community, and we don't have as much geographic areas compared to the city of Scranton, for example, and we may not have as much as stormwater or I guess sewer, any of the kind of environmental issues that Scranton may have. why is it still good to be involved in a regional organization, even though we're a lot different than Scranton and they have a lot more issues, a lot more people than we have?
Well, actually, I think that the interesting thing is that, if you look at the size of the projects that we have this year and last year, we're talking over 700, probably close to $1 million between the two when you incorporate all the labor, the engineering and so forth. Those are costly projects, but they go a long way. When we regionalize, if we don't have, a big project, we have to report something every year. But when it's regionalized, it's as long as the minimum is done within the region, we meet the permit requirements, as opposed to each individual location meeting the permit requirements.
And it might be, I guess it'll be easier to collect fees and get grants and stuff like that if we work together. Is that kind of the mindset, or?
That is absolutely the mindset. Grant money goes a long way. They're always looking for regionalization. That is a key word when you're doing an application for a grant. If you're saying it's a regional project, you will be bumped up in priority. And secondly, the collection process, there's efficiency by the scales of efficiency. The bigger the projects, the cheaper per foot it is to do the project. So when we're bringing in a contractor to do a big project that's going to cover South Abington, Clark Summit, and Clark's Green, the per foot cost of that project would be a lot cheaper than if Clark Summit bid out their work and South Ave bid out their work and Clark's Green bid out their work, because now we have 3 companies staging, for example, rather than one. So
and then we could probably figure out, the terms of this, we can prorate it so that we pay our proportionate share of the expenses, but we can receive this, all the benefits from being in the group too, right? I mean, right now it's not, nothing's in writing. It's just sort of a kind of an idea just going forward, right?
It's exactly like the talk that we're doing about with the regional police. All we're talking about is doing a study and determining if it's cost effective, if we want to do it, and what the impact would it be on each community. If we then have any hesitations, we don't do it. We're not committed to anything other than just participating in the study to see what the cost would be.
What's the feasibility study, basically?
Exactly. And Scranton is willing to front the money for the feasibility study out of their ARPA monies. So we're not even paying for that. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not suggesting that we do the regionalization yet. I'm definitely encouraging you to participate in the study, though. Any other questions?
Do we have to vote on this next week then, Virginia?
No. It was just because there were questions. Bob, called me and we were talking about, and he said, let's try to bring everybody up to speed before they have that meeting with the engineer from Scranton.
Right.
Josh, did you have a question?
Yeah, my only question was in regard to that. So process wise, the meeting is when, and then what?
The meeting is not scheduled yet, but it will be a virtual meeting. You will all receive an invitation. It will be the engineers from Scranton and then representatives from the individual municipalities. Who is invited in this is the municipalities that are obligated to hold permits. So communities like Clark's Green is not an MS4 community, so they're not part of the process. They're not invited in there. It's something that they can always consider coming into, but they're not part of this right now. Right now, it's the people that have to meet these requirements and have to do the permits that are being invited.
God. Jesus.
Dave, if anybody understands that, that's you, right?
Oh,
You
no,
usually
that's
have your
Harry.
dog on
That's
your
Harry.
lap.
That's
Oh, I
Harry.
know,
Me.
but I mean, I'm saying
Yeah,
you
no,
can
my dog
appreciate
is-
it because your dog is usually on your lap.
My dog is sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, I wish this guy was too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the mute button or whatever it is? What do you do there? Jeez.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
Okay, the next item on our agenda, this was the last minute thing that came out from Jen today.
Right.
if anybody is familiar, local people that have been here a while or might be familiar with the DeWild property, it is located off of Waverly Ave. It was a big, beautiful estate at one time. In the past, and I couldn't tell you, 20, 30 years, the home was sold and it was converted to 4 apartments. At this point now, that home has been sold back to somebody that is looking to keep it as one family home. Jen did go out. She did get a tour of the property. It is definitely being used by a single family. It is not, there are not 4 kitchens anymore. So she is saying that she agrees that it is just a single family home. Their request that we would vote on next week is to change it from 4 EDUs to 1. Does anybody have any questions?
Effective when?
Whenever, right now, they're just asking going forward.
Uh,
So it'd be
It would
effective
up to you
now.
guys. Yeah, it would be up to you guys. I'd say effective February 1st, since the meeting's gonna be February 2nd.
And Jen 100% feels that it is only one family living in
Yes.
it now.
She was in there, she met the family, she walked through the home. It is not apartments anymore. And it was originally a single family home. And this is somebody that had the money and wants to bring back the nice, estate feel that was there.
That was my next question, is they've converted it back to a one
Yes.
family.
Yes.
so on the advice of our zoning chairman, zoning person,
Mhm.
zoning officer,
Officer.
I would move it forward for a vote.
Okay. Okay. We'll talk about that next week. Last item on our agenda, we received our new police vehicles. They are beautiful. We now have 2 vehicles that they are replacing. We have the Tahoe and the unmarked car. The question is, are we going to sell both of them, or are we keeping one of them for EMA?
I thought we had discussed keeping, I believe, the Tahoe for EMA.
We had
Yes.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
I
need to
also
make a
thought
vote to move forward on one or both.
I also thought
And-
that Artie, when we said that to him, sort of shook his head and said, no, I don't
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
Well, we could still use it if Artie decides he wants to decline that. We can still use it for our code enforcement officer. That
Just
way
as
she's
a,
got an official vehicle when she goes around in the
Well,
borough.
and
so
she
it
does
can be-
use the police vehicles when she goes out right now.
I
That's
would
true.
hate to see us keep a vehicle that is going to sit idle, because it's only going to depreciate. quickly.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, the
And-
chief and I
and the
were
other-
talking today, and
Yeah.
it's a big expense.
Yeah.
We gotta pay
Yeah, we-
insurance on it if anyone's gonna use it anytime.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
rather that we divest ourselves of it
Yeah.
unless there's a
I
Certainly.
would
Well,
think so.
Get rid of
too.
both of them then, and then they're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
They're off
So
the
that's what we'll-
rolls,
Yeah.
and we don't have to worry about them.
We'll vote to put it on municipal bid next week, if that's
Exactly.
okay with everyone.
Sure,
that's fine.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you.
all right, so you have the draft agenda in front of you for next week. It's been going to be changed after our meeting tonight. I'll make some changes to it and resend it out to everyone. That is it, unless anybody has something they wanted to bring up.
Okay, also, I wanted to let the council members know that on February the 4th at 11 o'clock, they're going to be doing the, through our state representative and our senator, our 2 new vehicles that the police have acquired. And we just want to give a thank you. Anybody that wants to be included in that, to be at the police department at 11 o'clock on the 4th.
Yeah, we're
Thanks,
going to take
Jared.
pictures and send it out.
Okay, other than that, also, I just wanted to know if any other council members are ready to jump in and help us. We're going to be selling chili and we're going to be selling the homemade chicken noodle soup also. They're in quart containers. There will be nothing served. They can take it home and enjoy it at home. But we're also, the Lions Club are not going to be selling food, but we're selling our chili and our soup. We're going to be using their hot dog machine that cooks 27 hot dogs at a time. So we would need some extra help just to help with the hot dog school. We're very big. And also as a fundraiser for Clark Summit Council for our Christmas lights, we're doing a basket of cheer, and we'll be selling tickets, chances on that also. So if there's anybody that's going to be available, it would be Friday evening, Saturday or Sunday. Just you can let me know or Virginia know what time you would be available, and would be more than happy for any extra helping hands. Okay, that's all I have to report, Virginia.
Okay, then we just need to adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, everybody have a good
All
day.
right.
We'll be meeting virtually next week. I'll send an invitation out on Monday.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
All right.
See you
And we hope
Sunday,
to see
Jerry.
everybody in our ice festival. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
have fun.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.